I'm here today as part of a coalition of people and organizations committed to advocating for the rights of residents to have clean, reliable, affordable water to drink, to have clean air to breathe, and to have a clean environment to live in. We want to congratulate you on your victory and welcome you to your term. As a council, you will face many issues, few as critical and urgent as our water crises. We have great hopes for this new council. You all have the power to make better decisions than past councils. You have the power to center people's needs and concerns. You have the power to correct flawed, poorly planned, and poorly researched decisions. You have the power to save our bay and the local economy that relies on it. We come to you today to let you know that we remain committed to advocating for all residents, our water, and our environment. We want a resilient, sustainable, thriving Corpus Christi and Coastal Bend, and we want to help move our community closer to those goals. With that said, we would like to share some information and suggestions with you. Even during stage 3 drought conditions, industry's water needs are prioritized over residents. They pay a little extra to be exempt from drought restrictions.
Why has water use increased despite clear goals and strategies to reduce it with a minimal growth in population? Could it be that many of the industries along Refinery Row and surrounding areas are using a majority of our water supply, with more large volume water users being lured in here by the Corpus Christi Economic Development Corporation and others? I've been coming and speaking about this topic for the last 9 years, ever since we had our water boils in 2015 and 2016, when a lot of the people in this community got together and started realizing that we can't depend on anyone else to save us but ourselves.
Temporary solutions can provide relief, but they're not sustainable. If we truly want to secure our water future, conservation is the key. Whether it's reusing water, incentivizing large-scale rainwater harvesting, mandating drought-resistant landscaping, or encouraging industries to adopt more efficient practices, every reduction in water consumption adds up.
Reuse water programs can also be expanded with municipal operations. The city owns several public spaces such as parks and sports fields, which are perfect candidates for reclaimed water. This would not only conserve potable water, but also set an example for other organizations to follow. Furthermore, exploring partnerships with third parties outside the city's service area could open up new opportunities for large-scale reuse projects. These partnerships could help make gray water reuse a cornerstone of regional water conservation efforts, further protecting our limited potable water resources.
Transparency is the foundation of trust between the city and residents, and it's essential that residents have a clear, consistent access to information about how our water is being managed and used. Our city's drought contingency plan expired 2 years ago. A new or updated plan should have been brought forward by the council in December of 2023. Residents need regular, easy-to-understand updates about water levels, drought stages, and the specific steps the city is taking to address the situation.
Never leave them. Even if we run out of water, I would stay, because we are a resilient community and we can help each other through this crisis. But to my public comment, every drop counts. I and all who spoke before me are drops in the waters of the Corpus Christi population, and our voices count. So today I'm here to say that y'all's messaging of every drop counts falls short of motivating the public. As our community faces ongoing drought conditions, public messaging plays a vital role in helping people understand the situation and the steps being taken to address it. The campaign Every Drop Counts focuses too much on individual behavior without addressing what the city itself is doing to manage water resources. To build trust and encourage community cooperation, the city needs to shift the focus of its messaging to highlight its own conservation efforts and infrastructure improvements.
The Natural Resources Defense Coalition, or Council, is a nonprofit organization that works to protect the environment, people, plants, animals, and encourages cities and states to develop policies and incentives to promote more rainwater harvesting. This would include adopting stormwater pollution control standards that require on-site volume retention, adopt standards that require or promote rainwater harvesting and water efficiency, review building and health and plumbing codes for barriers to reuse rainwater. And my favorite one is to require the use of rainwater harvesting on all public properties. I think that would be something amazing for our city to really champion. So please review and utilize the Water Conservation Plan. More incentives should be provided for existing structures to encourage large-scale rainwater harvesting. These could apply to residents, construction companies, government buildings, schools, other facilities with large rooftops. And these incentives could help help fund collection systems and encourage the storage of rainwater for non-potable purposes, making water conservation more accessible and impactful across the community.
To begin, environmental racism is a type of systemic racism that occurs when environmental policies, practices, and decision-making disproportionately impact people of color. This can happen intentionally or unintentionally. That said, we want to speak on how the city leaves people to shoulder enormous burdens alone. We are addressing this city's management of Hillcrest. Hillcrest has suffered from a legacy of racist land use decisions made by the city of Corpus Christi and other governmental entities that span from past policies of overt racial segregation to industrial developments that continue to disproportionately impact the predominantly African American and Latina community. During the Jim Crow era, the city's Planning and Zoning Commission imposed zoning restrictions that limited African Americans to the north side after oil was discovered there, which led to refineries clustering, thanks to the assistance of the city, in the area along the port, an area we all now know as Refinery Row. Since then, Hillcrest has been continually sequestered by a sea of pollution sources that now include refineries, the ship channel to its north, Highway I-37 to its south, and the ongoing construction of Harbor Bridge to its east. Building a desalination facility in the Inner Harbor is the most textbook example of environmental racism for the sake of inviting more industry to use more of our water. We declare for the city to ultimately respect and restore Hillcrest to, at the minimum, a livable community. We stand with Hillcrest.
In 2002, TAMUCC Heart Research Institute submitted a report to the Coastal Bend Bays and Estuaries Program about the vulnerability of Corpus Christi Bay system. The report confirmed that the Corpus Christi Bay is getting warmer and saltier, and this is happening because of higher evaporation, reduced fresh water flows into the bay, and slower water circulation. Industrial-scale desalination could exacerbate the already existing negative effects in our bay. The main points of concern include, number 1, releasing the salty brine and chemicals into the ocean, number 2, harming marine life when large amounts of seawater are uptaken into the system, and number 3, producing air pollutants like CO2 and SO2 gases, not to mention using a lot of energy to produce this expensive water. To quote from the report, average salinities are already at levels that could impact species abundance and diversity, and therefore small increases in salinity could add to additional pressures to a system that's already experiencing salinity stress. No amount of industry expansion is worth risking our quality of life.
Perhaps one of the more concerning aspects of desalination is its role in turning water into a commodity. As private organizations invest in desalination as a leading growth area in the global water market, access to water increasingly becomes tied to profitability. When water is privatized, public control diminishes, making it harder to ensure safety, equity, and affordability. This shift prioritizes corporate profits over the public good and undermines our collective ability to manage water as a shared essential resource. Desalination may seem like a solution, but its social costs are far-reaching and demand serious consideration before proceeding. Please see who is here today and who cares about this, who showed up on a Tuesday in the middle of the day to come talk about it. Thank you.
We are concerned about how the $535 million funding from the Texas Water Development Board, which was approved for the project in spring of 2024, will affect water rates for residents. With such a significant investment, it's crucial for the city to clearly communicate how these costs will be managed. Will residents see higher water bills to pay for the plant's construction and operation? If so, what measures will be taken to ensure rates remain affordable, particularly for low-income households? Residents deserve a clear breakdown of how this funding is being allocated. Transparency about costs and financial planning is essential to maintaining public trust and ensuring that this project benefits the entire community, not just industries. Thanks for your time. It's been real.
And the devil himself would have to drag me away from this community. It is not only the lack of transparency concerning the collaboration between CC Polymers and the cities that worries us. It is also the kind of large corporation that CC Polymers is. Yes, the discharge from their desal facility will prove just as disastrous for the Bay as the city's Inner Harbor project. However, the very production of more plastics and where these plastics come from should be a cause for concern to anyone listening or who sits on the dais who believes in the sound, irrefutable science that fossil fuel use and production are the main drivers of global warming. It doesn't seem related until we come to the understanding that 99% of all the plastic produced in the world gets its start as a fossil fuel. Although there is a growing awareness of the environment environmental and public health risks of plastics, the industry is set to grow another 33% in the next decade. The same report warns that this overconstruction and overproduction creates a serious risk that plants will become less profitable over time, resulting in industry layoffs. Once built, however, this infrastructure will operate, locking in incentives for the industry to produce a flood of new plastics for decades to come. With expanded production and consumption will come more spills and emissions from chemical plants, more shorelines clogged with plastic where marine life cannot survive, and more microplastic particles and the pollutants they absorb finding their way into our food chains and tap water. Just as importantly, it will perpetuate a fossil fuel economy that underpins the climate crisis while impacting the communities like ours where these facilities operate. When those representing the Nueces Economic Development Corporation claimed that CC Polymers would be a wonderful opportunity for young people in our community, the actual youth who were there adamantly protested because we want jobs that pay well. Yes, that is true, but we do not want well-paying jobs that come at the cost of our health, the health of our loved ones, and the health of our planet. There are several cities working with labor unions in order to create green jobs. Why can't Corpus Christi be one of them?
A necessary change that we urge council to work on is ending the drought exemption for high-volume water users. If we look at the 5 corporations with the greatest water usage, which are Gulf Coast Growth Ventures, Valero, Flint Hills, LyondellBasell, and Occidental Chemical, they use a combined 36.5 million gallons of water a day. That's more than 1.5 million gallons of water per hour. Yet they are allowed to consume as much water as they want for their production. According to the current water conservation plan, at stage 3, we should be reducing our demand by 30%. Using the example of asking residents to turn off their water while brushing their teeth amounts at most to saving about 8 gallons of water per day per person. If every single person in Corpus is brushing their teeth twice a day, which I hope so, we would be looking at saving about 2.5 million gallons of water a day. So that's less than what these 5 corporations are using in just 2 hours of their processing. We do need industry to curtail. If those industries, those 5 industries were to use just 5% less water, we could save 1.8 million gallons of water a day. If they conserve 10%, we could save 3.6 million gallons a day. Requiring them to save 10% is a whole lot better than requesting them to save 30%, right? So again, we urge that there is a pause on this drought exemption at the very least while we continue to be in stage 3. And, you know, this group of us today, we've stood before you, you know, our elected officials on your first day on the job, right, to demonstrate to you our solidarity, our determination as a community. We would love to just, again, urge that you prioritize the residents of the city over a lot of, you know, the industrial giants who have been draining our resources at a hefty discount, right? You know, we demand that in your terms as city councilors that you do cease progress on the desalination plant in the Hillcrest neighborhood, the Inner Harbor project, and your collaboration with CC Polymers, and reject the Corpus Christi Water Department's proposal to buy our water from a private corporation. And again, just to echo the sentiments of all of my friends that have commented before me, please, please be the ones to finally break the mold and put people before profit.
I'd like to remind the City Council that y'all are here to represent the people of Corpus Christi. Y'all work for us, and it's time y'all start acting like it.
ExxonMobil SABIC Gulf Coast Growth Ventures came online in January of 2022 using 12.5 million gallons of water a day. The City of Corpus Christi went into stage 1 drought restrictions on June 14th, 2022, 5 months later. Is this a coincidence? I think not.
This project is not just an environmental hazard, but also a form of corporate welfare. In recent years, the city has signed away vast quantities of water to industries like ExxonMobil and Steel Dynamics, granting them massive tax breaks while residents face rising water bills and drought restrictions. ExxonMobil's plastic plant alone consumes 25 million gallons of water per day, nearly matching the output of the proposed Inner Harbor plant.
In our experience, the detailed hydrodynamic modeling may show that the actual design for the brine diffuser does not meet the permit requirements under all operating cases. If this happens late in the design development, it can result in significant project delays to amend the discharge permit. For far-field modeling, GHD uses the industry standard Mike 3 FM for three-dimensional hydrodynamic modeling. Both near-field and far-field modeling are needed to confidently predict the diffuser operation under operating cases. For about the last year, Mr. Hale, Mr. Munster, and myself have been asking the city to perform a far-field model. Now that Hewitt states that it is, quote, needed, maybe it will get done.
Like John said, I spent the last year explaining to the City Council how the Inner Harbor plant needed more modeling. I explained how the Inner Harbor has very little water movement and was likely to have issues if a large-scale desalination plant was built here. The local experts at Hart Institute and UTSMI agree that inshore desalination is a bad idea because it would lead to hypoxia in the Corpus Christi Bay. Recently, the contractor the city hired produced a technical document stating that detailed modeling will be needed to ensure permit conditions will be met under all operating cases. Like John said, stating that based on their experience, the permit conditions may not be met and would require operational modifications or permit amendments. Additionally, they state that there is a risk of brine recirculating back into the intake due to minimal tidal flow and nearby discharges into the shipping channel. To me, that blows my mind that Friesen Nichols would suggest a project where the intake could be recirculating the outfall. So how did we get here? How was it that city council members ignored scientific consensus and continued developing the Inner Harbor plant anyways? It's pretty simple. It's because Friesen Nichols told them that the Inner Harbor was a good location and that we didn't need more modeling. We spent millions of dollars in multiple years working on this project. That's time and money that we could have spent on better projects. We need a reliable, long-term solution to our water problems, and the Inner Harbor isn't it. Friesen Nichols led us astray, and because of them, we are behind on fixing our water crisis. Moving forward, we should start looking at better options and start working with more reliable engineering companies.
It isn't even a stretch for any reasonable person to conclude that dumping 50 million gallons of oxygen-deprived sludge each day, that's 50 million gallons every day, into a shallow bay that connects with the Gulf only at the ship channel, could likely kill dolphins, fish, and other aquatic life. If there is the slightest chance, even 1 in 100, that we could see dead dolphins and dead fish, hundreds and thousands, floating belly up in that bay, why in heaven's name would you take that risk?
The Public Utilities Commission calls this the worst managed water department in the state. I went way up the ladder and found out, why is that? They said, incompetent management. What are we going to do about that?
To close, while there's so much more I want to say, I want it on the record that I do not want my city run like a company. I want it run like a city that cares about people, above profit and exponential cancerous growth. Thank you.
I leave with the words of Dr. King. I must admit that I am initially disappointed in being so categorized as an extremist. But as I continue to think about the matter, I gradually gain a bit of satisfaction from being considered an extremist. Was not Abraham Lincoln an extremist? This nation cannot survive half slave and half free. Was not Thomas Jefferson an extremist? We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. So the question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists we will be. Will we be extremists for the preservation of injustice, or will we be extremists for the cause of justice?
The desal project inspired me to speak here in 2021. I didn't use readers back then. Conditions have worsened in the interval. Our land is more destroyed and polluted. Wealth is increasingly funneled from mid to lower income folks to billionaires. And the ruling classes double down on greed, deceitfulness, and violence. While we show up in blue at city council meetings, they pull strings in the halls of power in DC and Wall Street. They laugh at us or ignore us. For change to occur, they will need to fear us. My objection to this ecologically damning, industry enriching, and household fleecing policy has not wavered. The following is my message to the unborn or future life of this land. Chapter 2. You are an afterthought, if thought of at all. We, your ancestors, struggled to imagine beyond quarterly financial reports and are led to believe history began yesterday. While the plastic-infused coastal plains face intensifying storms, mingled with drought or flood, many worry over their next meal, while a select few plot their next billion or profit from genocide. Faceless corporations orchestrate their greed, and for-profit public servants speak from both sides of their mouth, leaving an increasingly polarized and distrustful multitude scrambling beneath Valero-funded surveillance cameras along the seawall. Erosion of coastlines dovetails with erosion of liberties. Degradation of ecosystems parallels decay of community. When you review the written record of our time, what will you think? If you could find a descendant of the original peoples of this land, ask them about reciprocity and gratitude, then shut up and listen. They may be gone. We all may be gone.